With that, I now recognize the ranking member for 4 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for calling today's hearing to consider these two recently introduced bills designed to jumpstart lending in small businesses. While Republicans share the goal of promoting credit availability for small businesses, many of us in the minority disagree that the best method for achieving the goal is to create a new $30 billion program that is not paid for and that follows a model of government investment in private businesses that most Americans want to see brought to an end, and that's the bailouts. And I count myself as one of those who wants to see all bailouts come to an end. We're told that this new program is not TARP and that no TARP funds will be used to pay for it. But the reality is considerably more complicated than that. Indeed, Neil Brofsky, the Special Inspector General for the TARP, wrote in a letter to the Appropriations Committee yesterday that, and I quote, "In terms of its basic design, its participants, its application process, and perhaps its funding source from an oversight perspective, the Small Business Lending Fund would essentially be an extension of TARP's capital purchase program." While I take Chairman Frank at his word that he has rejected the administration's original proposal to pay for the new initiative from repaid TARP funds, the fact that no funding source has yet to be identified gives rise to legitimate questions about taxpayer accountability that must be answered before this committee votes to authorize another $30 billion in new spending, particularly on the heels of what we've witnessed in Europe over the past 2 weeks. As we call on the Greek people and the Greek government to act in a responsible manner, we must not ask others to do what we are not willing to do ourselves. The sponsors of this legislation also assure us that any taxpayer losses from new investments in financial institutions are likely to be minimal, but it's worth noting that some 90 institutions that receive money under the capital purchase program still owe more than $182 million in missed dividend payments to American taxpayers, and that some institutions like Citigroup have gone bankrupt and will never repay their government funds. Why should we have any confidence that Treasury can manage TARP 3 any better than TARP 1? Additionally, in a report issued just last week, the TARP Congressional Oversight Committee, chaired by Elizabeth Warren, raised serious questions about the prospects for success of this program. Former SEC Commissioner Paul Atkins, a member of that panel, is here with us today at the invitation of committee Republicans, and I look forward to hearing his insights. While I support the majority's decision to finally focus on one of the driving causes of the nation's 10% unemployment crisis, and that's small businesses and lack of lending to those institutions, I cannot support ill-conceived proposals that will likely do little to help the economy, but plenty to drive up the national debt and crowd out funding in the private market for small businesses. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, for holding today's hearing. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman